Welcome back to the We're Right About RPGs podcast, where we tell you how RPGs are played, and anybody who says otherwise, well, we're going to cancel them. That's over. That's stick a fork in them.
I'm going to cancel all my subscriptions.
My Patreon subscriptions?
No, all the pre-purchases I've made.
Oh, dude, Kickstarter fucking is dying. You heard about that?
Yep, I heard about it.
At least in an RPG
I heard a lot
sense.
about it from you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's dying, but it's stupid. Because they're just like going, I'm assuming their shareholders are like, we got to do a blockchain thing now. And they're like, what, why? And it's like, do it. And everybody's dropping them.
Yeah.
But I still have some outstanding Kickstarters through that. Last thing you Kickstarted is Dark Tower, right?
Yep.
Have you Kickstarted anything since?
I've looked at some, but no, I haven't.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's this one I backed by LFOSR. It's called. It's actually funny because it reminded me a lot of some of your stuff, but like.
Oh, it better be funny.
It better be funny.
This is supposed to be entertaining.
It is
to some degree.
It is. We're warming up. It's cold out. We're gonna take longer to warm up than usual.
It is cold.
Yeah. It is very fucking cold. I gotta look up what it's called because I always forget.
You weren't plugged in all the way. My bad.
It wasn't plugged. Well, now I don't hear anything.
Nice.
So it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't really matter that much. I'm gonna maintain this distance. Horizon Rising, and it's literally like a system neutral setting. They're releasing a lot of like cool physical shit for, where it's like seas rising around the edges of a fucking like area with like crazy dead deities and shit.
Weird. Very
Dark Soulsy, but also very very lawsuity. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like nothing like your shit, like at all. Like the only thing
Nothing ever is.
It's true.
It can have all the elements. They're not rearranged in the right way to recreate what I've done.
Even when you run published shit, even when you run existing settings, no one does it like you do. You know?
Well, yeah, no one goes off book.
No, I mean off. Well, what I mean is like you would do a good job of making it your own, but it still feels faithful to the original.
I guess so.
Ravenloft being the biggest example that I can think of.
I guess so. I tried.
I mean, Star Trek's pretty off the fucking rails in terms of how the types of missions we're doing are grim, man. Yeah. It's grim. It's There's gore. There's death. I've killed someone more than once.
It just happens to be, the sequence of adventures that I've chosen because, I mean, I'm just running other stuff.
You've also picked things that have made us, like, the immediate reaction is, like, all right, suit up, get the guns.
Yeah.
Like, fucking, because... And every time when it's like, okay, you know what, maybe not. Maybe we could chill out. Maybe it's a chill session that it's like, man... We should have just killed everybody. I would have rather take the threat of murder and the reputation of murdering everybody in this space station.
Yeah. But luckily for your character, you don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, Bosch is pretty restrained for a Klingon.
Yeah. Bosch is a lot more restrained than you are.
We'll
put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna compare him to Dench and just say that like
Bosch is like a filter for taking your activity and your engagement with the game and being able to just go, okay, this is a measured approach of how I will attain that.
I like that. It's a distillation of my play style.
Yeah.
Of the highly tactical, like fucking how many rounds of ammo do I have type of war game approach to that shit.
Very war gamey for Star Trek, yeah.
Which is funny because
awesome.
It's quite the opposite of what Dench was, which was very much the opposite.
Oh, Dench was no filter.
Yeah.
In fact, there were times when I would have to play it up because there comes a point where it's like, what would Dench do? Dench would do something obscene. Even Twy in Eberron, he didn't get the chance to do many things, but max painting off of that building onto the carriage was not well advised, but I was doing it anyway.
Pretty much everything you did in that game was not well advised.
Yeah, but at least
that's why it worked pretty well.
At least it made sense.
Yeah.
Everything that I think Twy is probably my most toned down character that I've played in any of your games.
Yeah.
Because he also,
it's true.
In a mission, he belonged to an order that dictated his actions. Bosch does, but it's a broader order, and Dench was his own man, so that's dangerous. Yeah. I love my characters. All of them orcs, if you notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a particular type of race you like. What are you trying to say?
I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been some discourse that I've been seeing on Twitter a lot about like how about this shit, like how you play D&D and how you're supposed to do it and stuff. But a lot of people have been talking about just whether you should be playing D&D in general because there's so many other cool smaller games to try.
Yeah.
And then people are pulling the whole like they're going online. There's like, am I? Does that mean that I'm just bad for playing D&D? That I shouldn't play D&D? And it's taking all of my power not to go and say, yeah. You should. God damn, that's what the whole discourse is about. Is being
they
like,
could
do your
actually
own
just
thing,
be
man.
10-year-olds, yeah. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I was wrong, yeah.
Even better. It's like you know all the virtual school that's going on. It's like you got to get bullied somewhere. Cyberbullying is seeing a market
Well, that's
uptick.
the thing.
And
Bullying was already transitioned from you get to go home and then maybe you're safe for the night. But like cyberbullying is like
Cyberbullying, you're all the time.
24/7.
Like you're laying in bed all alone and you check your phone and your phone's like ripping you down.
it is.
Making faces.
Or you go
at
play video games. You get on like a fucking you get on
and then you just
Xbox
suck.
Live or Counter
You suck
Strike.
because you're already so stressed from the day
Yeah.
of like everything that's happened and like all these thoughts going in. You're like, maybe I'll relax and play a game with some friends. And then after like 30 minutes, they're all cussing you out because
Yeah.
how bad you're playing.
Yeah, they're chewing you out in all chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, calling you words, calling you names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just kind of like,
The whole point with 4th edition was to try to get D&D to emulate video games. We've come full circle now.
yeah, that's true. That's true. We really have, haven't we?
Yep. Now you've got the lobby chat.
Yeah, the lobby chat is just the Roll20 table you're in, and
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's just it's so important to like think for yourself when you're running games and shit or playing games.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into the rote like, oh, this is what I should be doing, what I should be running. This is how this setting works and stuff. But then it really only takes a little bit of like, what if I did this to like completely change everything,
Yeah. It usually doesn't take much.
Usually takes him.
So you're like,
He's good at that.
Yeah, he's really good at that.
He's the nutcracker, man.
He's he's refined it over like what he's doing in Star Trek now.
Oh, I've been meaning to say
Just
your Star Trek character is my favorite character you've ever played. Your Star Trek character is the first character. I've always loved your characers. But this is,
really?
But yes.
Okay.
But this is the
Source?
first time that
yeah, source.
my dad told me. But this is the first character you've played that like, because a lot of your characters, like I like them for what they are, but they feel like bit characters. What's this? Your character now? What's his fucking name?
Brap.
Brap. Yeah,
The
how could I fucking forget?
The game's made from Brap. It's
Yeah.
called Brap.
But what I mean is like, he fits you. You fit him. Like it's perfect. It's awesome. I love Brap. You do such a good job. Everything that you've done in any other game would be completely bizarre, but in this game, it's like, yeah, that makes total sense. You know what I'm saying?
doing the same thing I've always had.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But like Brap is like, I'm saying there's an evolution because instead of it just being like, yeah, I'm gonna do whatever I usually do, it's like there's at least something that embodies that in the game instead of you interjecting it through the haze of metagame right into the game.
So you don't think a wheelbarrow full of pasta
Oh, that was
Is-
fucking stupid.
is a part of the Star Trek game?
Actually, it makes. I was thinking about this when I was at the table. It makes a lot more sense because of replicators.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't someone just fill a fucking wheelbarrow full of spaghetti? That was Brap was completely in touch with his id in that moment when he was just mashing the fucking
And then
button.
you start attacking the actual, as a player, attacking the game design of the module based off of its ego versus id versus super ego
that
sort
was
of dichotomy.
wild. He's had some insights specifically last night that when he says something, I look at you and you look like it's like you have this look like, did you read the adventure, motherfucker? Like,
Well, I mean, the beginning of the whole thing is like, all right, you get onto the station, and he goes, "I'm going to the replicators." I'm like, I haven't even described anything. He's like, I'm going to go to the replicators.
yeah, and you're like, what the fuck?
And I'm like, what? And I immediately look in the book, and like, check 2 is the replicators.
That's
and it's all
fucking
built in the
amazing.
book. And it's like, they're not supposed to get here until you red herring them somewhere else. And
Well,
he
at
went straight
first
to
I
the...
knew it was a red herring, but second, the whole point nothing to do with smarts. I literally, whether the adventure was any different, I wanted Ryan to help me put my pasta recipes in the system. Literally had nothing to do with anything. I just saw there was living, breathing people on the ship, and I did a quirk.
What do you know? Characters following their personal goals actually leads to story development.
That's bizarre.
What a surprise.
That sounds really loaded. Why are you looking at me when you're saying
No,
that?
I'm looking at you because who do I have to look at?
You
There's like
two
two
people to
options.
look at. it's that's fucking funny.
No, I'm saying that's how stories work.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Even when that goal, so I put some stuff on my itch of like, I redid my like GM advice thing.
Yeah.
Because I found a lot of really cool stuff. But one of the things I read was that like the desire component is so important, right? Like literally this person compared it to Hungry Hungry Hippos. Like when you sit down to play Hungry Hungry Hippos, what are you? A hippo.
Yeah.
What are you? Hungry. How do you stop being hungry? You got to eat all that. In fact, you got to eat more than the other hippos.
Yeah.
So you better get fucking going.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Wow, are you saying Hungry Hippos is the first role playing game?
it is
That's a I mean
the first one. Gary Gygax ain't got shit.
when you hand a kid Hungry Hippos, there's no confusion. They understand what what their goal is,
Yeah.
what the role to play is.
Right. So you could sit down with someone who's never played a role playing game before, who doesn't understand the setting, and you fucking establish that desire, and they're like, let's go. Everybody's going for that personal goal because they know what their goal is.
Can you
They're Hungry Hippos.
Can you build a mechanic system, but then have the combat just be Hungry Hippos?
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
So it works like Fate otherwise, and then
Well, like you said,
Hungry Hippos.
the first role playing game was Hungry Hungry Hippos.
Yeah.
Everything else, it just went off of it.
Yeah.
Because Gary Gygax was like doing whatever. All I'm saying is Gygax and Arneson are hacks.
Yeah.
Total hacks. They stole all their ideas from Hungry Hungry Hippos. Don't even get me started on Candyland. I don't know about you guys, but I always wanted to fuck Lord Licorice when I was
Oh man.
young. You have anything to add to that?
Man, you're just everywhere.
I am everywhere today. It's probably all I've been.
Where are you,
I have been
Matt?
drinking cold brew all day. I have
Oh
been,
my
I've
God.
been drinking. I'm only realizing now just how caffeinated.
Yeah.
I am.
You're like
Damn.
you're zooming.
Well, fucking.
Meanwhile, Matt's
fucking
like
keep
passing
up.
out over here.
Keep up.
I usually have energy drinks. So
Not today.
no, I'm having coffee right now.
He's trying to catch up.
It's at 8.
I usually just warm up. Usually I need to warm up.
Yeah, but
No,
but
that's- I
he usually
figured,
drinks
yeah.
coffee and then goes to bed. He gets all like sleepy.
That's crazy.
I had that finished.
Unless it's an energy coffee, and then he's like crazy.
I finished the chocolate I had, the hemp chocolate.
Oh yeah, how's that been going?
Yeah, not
I
great.
mean, it was like 0.3. I mean, it was like.
Did you get to sleep nice?
No, I had it an hour ago.
Oh, you know what? That explains a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, that explains a ton.
All right.
Like 3 hours.
Well, no, I also know that we need to warm up because I feel like every time we run this,
Yeah.
I feel like I need to warm up.
I
So
feel like I
my
gotta
usual
reintroduce myself.
Okay,
go
yeah,
ahead.
let's
No,
go ahead.
no.
We might as well.
Go
No,
ahead.
you know?
no, as a character in this moment.
Okay,
as
yeah.
a character in like the podcast.
Yeah, I gotta warm up as a person.
Are we all playing versions of ourselves in the podcast? Is that what you think is going on?
I mean, I'm pretty quiet usually, so I have to put on a little bit.
Yeah.
That is true.
All right.
I usually listen more. But
So you're
shut
ro-
up.
Your role play.
See, there you go.
Yeah?
Fuck. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, is that you role playing right now in the role playing podcast? Is that what you're trying to tell me? That you've been role playing this whole time?
Yeah, we role playing. We're about to start combat. I'm
I
gonna
thought we were
role-play. I'm
having
gonna
a,
kick your
I thought
fucking
we were
ass. I'm
having a
hopefully kicking
genuine
your-
conversation here about tabletop.
No.
Oh,
No.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
I'm pouring my heart out into this shit.
What if the guy?
That's why nobody listened to
Is there
this.
a Gygax Foundation?
Yeah.
Oh,
What if like you're like, man, I really want to publish this game, and the Gygax Foundation's like, oh, we'll pay for it. We'll do everything. You still get your big cut. Would you say no on principle?
I mean, I like Gygax's work. Like I was joking earlier, but I would split the middle. I'd take the money and then like not put out a game, leave it in development hell, and then use the money to do whatever the fuck
Hey,
I want.
I'm gonna put it on Kickstarter.
Wow.
Kickstarter's already dead. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it
Exactly.
back. It only works if it comes back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if Kickstarter's dying, but like in the spheres that I run in, no one's fucking using it anymore.
I never used it,
or
but
trying not to.
I mean, it's just it always felt like a blimp, anyways. It was like bleep,
a blimp?
a blimp of like trend. You know, it's like
Oh,
trend. Like Kickstarter
Like a
was
blip, not a blimp.
A blimp.
A
the blip
blip.
of ideas.
A blip is an onomatopoeia following the appropriate sort of sound to the idea that it's attached to. It's
a blip.
A blimp is a giant floating balloon vehicle.
Well, blimp is an
ideas and ideas faces.
a blimp is an onomatopoeia. You just play like Hindenburg, like crowds screaming, you know, type shit, things blowing up. Well, I mean, it is a blimp because it's like yeah, I think Kickstarter has like started waning, but it got really big.
Yeah.
Especially in the RPG
like a big
industry.
blimp.
It's a blimp.
The other one was Indiegogo, right?
A lot of people are moving to Indiegogo, especially because you keep the money after. Like,
I thought there was always flexible stuff you could do.
So you can. I think that the main difference between Indiegogo and Kickstarter is Indiegogo, once the campaign's over, you keep whatever money you raised. So I think there's a certain like Kickstarter had to start putting up a bunch of these warnings and shit, literally saying like this is not a marketplace. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because that's what people thought. Oh, I give them money, I get the product. With Indiegogo, it's literally always been like, dude, like only give them money if like you actually support them and don't mind if they don't come out with something, basically. And I think it's kind of meted expectations a little bit. Because if I give money to an Indiegogo, you know, first of all, I'm only going to give to people who I want to have my money anyway. And if I don't get something, of course I want something, but if I don't get it, you know, I also don't pledge enough that I'd be heartbroken if I didn't.
But
So it kind of manages expectations, I suppose.
I guess that makes sense because it was the assumption of like you're investing in this like random, wild, futuristic stuff that most of them would never happen.
Right. A big problem that Kickstarter has started having. There are games that are only published through Kickstarter. Those Wormwood like gaming tables.
Nemesis, right?
They only
Dark Souls
Kingdom Death is the one that they only release. They do a Kickstarter for each wave of printings that they do for that game. And then there's the wood tables, which they only do through Kickstarter. And then you have this problem where like someone will release a product and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting more money, so I'm going to add all these stretch goals and stretch goals and stretch goals," and then never fucking comes out because they, you know, it's just
They're
it's
still
just
working on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
They did not understand like their new stretch goal would add incomprehensible amount of time they didn't realize they had.
Right. Yeah. I think I like to see. I think things are going the opposite direction, which is people are just now starting to release things for free because like people are starting to have the like tools to do it with. You know, like anybody can pull open like certain programs or like mark down stuff or whatever and just make something and just put it out online. You know what I mean? Which I think is pretty cool.
I guess I haven't seen it myself. You mean like what specifically?
I don't know. I mean, again, it's like the circles I run in a lot of the OSR stuff.
Oh,
I
okay.
see, and my own stuff. Like, I see all that for free, like, all the fucking time.
Well, I guess is OSR just so less in the open eye? Like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
like it's a kind of like it's not like so materialized, so there's a lot more community to it.
Yeah,
Like-
I would agree to that.
Because
I would
there's
agree
still a
with that.
lot for like regular fifth, but
Oh, there's well,
but
yeah,
like, you know, the
there's a
smaller
fuckload.
niche, more niche
Smaller
things,
niche.
more niche things. You get a lot more of like, hey, I'm just gonna put this out for like 3 people, and we're all gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's the reason anyone should publish anything, you know? That, ooh. The lights got all bisexual in here. It's pretty tight.
It's red.
You want to go over the
It's
questions?
red and it's kind of purple over here.
What?
Because of that.
You want to go over the questions?
I'm already going over my questions.
All right, go ahead.
Those questions
What?
are different questions.
The questions from yesterday we talked about.
Oh, do we want to do them?
No.
Yeah, because I think they're for the thing that you're doing, so it'd be kind of weird to share it.
Yeah.
What if, okay, how about we just do one? Pick one question,
Okay.
and then we can do it.
How
What's
about
your favorite one off of
what's your tabletop horror story?
Oh, boy. Besides the ones that involved the both of you?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, those are.
I was in the room. Don't even implicate.
That's hilarious. I asked you about that and didn't even think. Didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, I'll talk some bad shit on record. I don't care. No.
I mean, I guess from a DM standpoint, while you're running a game.
Yeah, I think I don't consider the things that we endured as a group like game nightmares.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of that kind of came down to like, we're still here. It didn't end up being an unmitigated disaster. We're still doing our thing. But there's one I'll always remember, which was at RPG Club back at the college.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that
jeez.
is ripe for some good stuff. Yeah. So, like...
Any of those clubs were crazy. There's so many people going in and out, different characters. Nothing stayed the same for plot or story or who's running or whatever. It's just whatever you wanted to bring to the table, and you just, like...
You were just running open tables. You were hanging on by the seat of your fucking pants. When you were running these games, it was like, fucking just hold on.
Yeah.
Because I miss that somewhat, you know? Like, I miss the chaos and the fact that it's fine that you're always flying by the seat of your pants, because what the fuck else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Any prep that you do is going to go up in smoke. But the problem with the number of people coming and going is the people.
Yeah.
You know? Because you get some fucking...
You get some people.
You get some stinkers. And there was a guy that I kicked from the... It's the one person I banned, actually. He was doing all the stereotypical shit. I had never seen this up until that point. The whole, like, chaotic... I'm chaotic neutral. I'm going to fuck everybody over. Make people uncomfortable at the table. Be loud. Like, you know, just literally a textbook shitty player. And it got to the point, the things he was saying and things he was doing, I was like, dude, like, I don't... And he was just pissing everybody off. I forget everything exactly, but he was a total fucking gremlin. And it got to the point where I was like, dude, you can't be at my table anymore. Like, I'm done playing with you. I don't care what you do. And then Victor, who... I haven't seen that kid in forever. He rocks. He was the other big GM at RPG Club.
Yeah.
And he was literally at the table next to me. And he looked over, he's like, oh yeah, I already kicked him from my table. And I looked over and I'm like, oh, you did? Oh, you're banned. Because I'm like, dude, if you've already been kicked from 2 tables, like, I'm not going to, what's going to happen? You know, I'm not going to send you another one.
I mean,
so
if there's a consensus, then yeah.
Having to, like, I've never really had to do that to a stranger before or since, but I was able to. It was pretty cool. I mean, it was pretty tight to be able to go get the fuck out of my room, you know?
I mean, yeah.
But that was horrible. Like, that was like every green text you fucking see about shitty D&D players, that was that experience. You know what I mean? And I'm like...
Embodied.
Truly embodied. And it gave me an appreciation for a lot of things, I think.
It's probably a new player.
I don't know. I don't remember if he was new or not.
Just an asshole.
It does sound like he was just an asshole.
I do wonder if there are a greater amount of bad players that are newer, or if there are a greater amount that are actually older holdouts in RPG communities.
Wow, that's actually a great question.
Where does the most toxicity, come from in terms of actual play at the table?
I think,
not talking about community of D&D altogether and stuff. I'm talking about getting down to the grindstone playing some games.
I think it's neither. I actually think so. I had to unsubscribe from the RPG subreddit because it's fucking garbage. Something I see all the time. Every single time I looked into my feed, it was a post that was like, oh man, I have a guy at my table who's making everyone uncomfortable and doing these things in game, and I tried to punish him for these things through the game, and I just don't know what to do. And all the comments are like, talk to them like a fucking adult. What the hell's wrong with you? Like, tell them to shut the fuck up or to leave. Yeah. And I realized that because I think everyone has done that at some point, was like kind of filter interpersonal issues at the table through the game. And I think the most toxicity in tabletop role-playing comes from channeling your interpersonal issues through the game and not just fucking talking to each other. And not straight up saying what you think or straight up saying how you feel. Because, of course, there's always going to be new players who have no idea what they're doing and they're using it as an excuse to, like, be shitty to people. And then you'll get some grognards who are like, that's not how you fucking play it. And then, whatever.
But it really is when those newer players really get hooked on to the role-playing experience, mostly because of how they can express personal issues into a sphere.
Right.
That seems like it's kind of enclosed and with no consequence.
Right. That is attractive. I can see why. I think that's the same reason people say RPGs are therapeutic or like a learning tool. Because it is like a safe space to, like, to express all that. But at the same time, if I'm sitting here, I'm like, dude, I don't need any of this in the game. You need to fucking knock it off. You know what I mean? But then if like someone's like, oh yeah, my entire family's dead, and they're expressing that through the game, and then you go, well, they're really annoying. That family he has is really annoying, so I'm gonna kill his family in game. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like that shit.
Yeah,
you know?
I've played with that.
Why are you looking at Matt?
No, because he remembers.
Yeah.
What was it? Tell me.
I had a character that I was able to save this like whole tribe of people, and I was able to like bring them out from a previous adventure. And then we stopped. Next week we played again, and we had a newer player.
He wasn't that new.
He wasn't that new, but he doesn't play that often. But he came and he was playing that session. So what did he do at the beginning of that session? He secretly went with stealth checks and everything, the rogue bastard, to, while we were doing the actual mission, burn down the ship where I had the tribe and make sure that they all drowned and died.
Yeah.
That sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
You weren't there.
But you weren't there.
You
No.
weren't there, no.
No. But like that was
sucks.
the whole goal. And
No, I was
How come
DMing.
it's always fucking
I was
rogues,
DMing
dude? You were DMing that?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
what?
Matt just lets it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do love just rolling with it though and being like, we'll see what fucking happens.
Yeah,
This
no.
doesn't affect me.
That's always Matt's like just his rule is whatever Casey does, fuck him. That's his.
I guess it appears like that. I'm sure.
What would you say your big GM style is then? What did you say? How would you say?
And what's your horror story?
Yeah. Would it be that or would it be something else?
Yeah. Every time Casey walks in the room, every time. Stabbing the ghost. I don't know. I don't do that often. Just get it. I mean, I remember in high school I had to with the interpersonal stuff. It was like I get really annoyed when people are engaged in games. So
Yeah.
I had Anna,
Yeah.
and I was just like, dude, I know you got a boyfriend right there, but we're playing a game.
That's always the high
Yeah.
school games. It was constantly, first off, you had 10 people around a table.
Mm-hmm.
All playing at once. And then you'd have like 1 to 2 couples. So sometimes
Couples
they'd
are
have a
so-
character. That'd be the worst, is when they're like, no, I want to play. And so you build them a character, only for them to ignore using the character so they can make out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I prefer if it's like, if you're just going to be there to make out, then don't get in the way of the character.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
one player that was successful at doing this. He was really good. Every time he'd play, if it's not his turn, his lips were sealed at work, just going at it. Immediately, we were like, "Hey, it's your turn." Boom, off. He's like, "All right, where are we at? I'm doing this. I cast this. I do this. I do that. Anything else? I'm done." Right back.
Right,
sealed.
locking lips.
Locking lips.
That fucking hey, props to him for fucking having the presence of mind to because obviously he's fucking making out, he's fucking doing all this shit, but he's listening. You know,
Yeah,
he's
no.
processing what
Yeah, it
he's
worked.
like. Damn, son.
But almost everyone else, it didn't work. I mean, that happened with a girl that I dated while I was DMing. Because I came in, we used to run games at school because like every 2 weeks or so they'd have what's called a late start. So the school would just start a bit later, so that everyone could mostly sleep in for an extra 2
It
hours.
was a high school, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's also like more an administrative time, I would assume. But everyone else is able to sleep in. Instead, we'd go, hey, why don't we show up 30 minutes earlier than we even would, and then we can play for 2.5 hours.
Ooh.
And get some campaign work in.
Yeah.
And then we can, after school, continue it and finish it, and we can get like a 6-hour adventure done.
Fuck yeah, dude.
So I did that, and I came in early. We were setting up, and I was DMing, and then my girlfriend came in at the time, my ex, and she was wanting my attention, and I was DMing, so I was like, hey, I'm a little busy right now, it's not an issue. So, but she's like, no, I'll just stay and I'll watch. So watching turned immediately into her hanging off me, and everything else, and I actually. I had a slight outburst at the time because I was like, hey, I'm trying to do a thing here.
Yeah.
I'm running a story.
Yeah. This is
I
a
can't
sacred thing.
split my focus.
No.
I'd love to split my focus, but I can't split my focus while I'm doing something that serves multiple people
Yeah.
on an intellectual and personal level
Yeah.
instead of just one other.
Right. No, I'm completely fucking with you on that.
Yeah.
How does she react?
Oh, she was pissed as hell.
I'm sure she was.
Yeah, she left, and I was like, fine. I ran the rest of my adventure.
Damn fucking straight. That is something I will never get. It's like, I would never do that to my partner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if they're doing a thing and they're doing it without me, that's okay because we're different people. You know what I mean? Especially if it's something that's clearly, maybe the reason I'm probably not doing it with them is because it's probably something that I don't get, but it's something that's very important to them. So I'm not going to come in and just belittle their experience. You know, it's like how someone, I could go the route and be like, couples at tables banned. No, but I've seen that a lot. I've seen what you describe a lot, and it literally is this thing where it's like, it feels like their partner just does not respect this at all, and it's like, shouldn't you just respect it because your partner wants to do it? That should be all the reason you need, man. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was high school.
Oh, it's absolutely.
I mean, it didn't last long.
But you still see it. You still see it in like adult ass gaming groups and stuff.
Yeah.
You know? We never really leave high school. We're in high school fucking forever.
See, with the original question of like, where do you find more bad players on either side? I'm more talking about that community gaming sort of deal, where you're just showing up for Adventurers League or your standard living campaign of a certain system, and just you just suddenly get a cotton swab of all the different types of geeks that are out there, and a lot of them are really freaking cool, and like it's awesome to play with people that you don't know on a personal level, that you only know them from how you're playing in game. That's been always an amazing experience to me. But you also then you do find the games where you're like, ooh, I hope I don't have another adventure with that guy.
Yeah, I only play with like my friends now.
Yeah,
because it's a sacred thing. Like you said, it's like you're invested in it. It's an interpersonal thing. It's an emotional thing. It's all very.
Well, I think you just get
important,
a deeper, richer story.
You do.
Yeah.
Or deeper, richer experience. Even if you're just fucking around playing some Beers and Pretzels RPGs, if you're doing it with people whose company you enjoy, you want to share important moments with, you're making memories that don't actually exist.
Yeah.
You're making fake memories. But it's like, I don't want to have a bunch of memories of people I don't give a shit about or people that I hate. I want to use that to build memories with the people that I like or the people that I love. And too many times have I done that exact thing where I've sat down at a gaming table and it's like, I don't want to associate with any of these people ever fucking again. Like it's just like I don't even want to look at them. I don't know how people do the just walking into a game store and sitting down thing. It's like, but at the same time, how do you get started? You know, we all had to do that at some point. Yeah. Go and sit down with randos. And I'm privileged to be in a place where I don't have to fucking do that again.
Yeah. Anyway, we got sidetracked. What is your style in your horror story, Matt?
What was my style? What
is your style?
I think if I recall, he said whenever Casey sits down at my table.
Yeah.
What style is my horror story?
It was two questions. It was the original question that I proffered, and then the additional question that Jimmy turned to you and asked, which is what your style of DMing is. However, I don't know. You don't do a whole lot of DMing. But I think
fun when you do.
I think you do have a particular style at a tabletop game, though.
Probably confusion.
Confusion. For who, though?
Everyone.
Yeah.
I like how I feel like we're both right. Me and Casey are like, say the line. Like
say
we're trying to get him to
like
say
what?
Fucking, I don't know, just
confusion. Yeah,
confusion. I think you're I've played a couple of the games you've GM'd and I've had a good time, but I think you're a very good player. You're a better player than I am. I think I'm getting better slowly over the years. Have I gotten better?
Yeah,
you've been a good player.
I've watched it as a dungeon master. You're getting very dangerous with how you're able to play the meta.
Matt? Yeah.
Because it's the moment where everyone's like yelling at you at the table for why you're doing something that you're closest to like breaking through stuff. Usually,
it's
every
true.
Single time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
But I think you're gonna find out that it's gonna burn you one day.
Myself or the character? I don't care.
See,
what
you're gonna
happens to the
fly a
character.
bit too high.
I don't care what happens to the character.
That's what I'm doing. I'm over here. I'm the Chad, running in, swinging hard, being a distraction, running interference. So the Sigma male can get his his thinking on and decipher the. When last night when you were sitting there and you were like quiet, I think because you were unconscious and I didn't realize that, and then we woke up and you're like, yeah, I know what's going on. I'm just like, holy fucking shit. The whole time he's just been sitting there just schemes within schemes, just a fucking mentat.
Matt's learned not to take anything that I run at face value.
Yeah. You don't take anything at face value. You don't even take things that you should take at face value, but that's a good thing. Because it keeps, at least, because then it lets his guard down.
Like what? Like what?
The way that you interrogate the world is, in a broad sense, you approach elements of the world in angles that they were not supposed to be approached.
Yeah.
Whether it's a plot element that's really important and you come at it from a completely different, unexpected angle, or it's a mundane thing, but you interrogate it in a way that it like unravels something.
You're the Columbo of D&D games.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
No, because it is exactly Columbo. Columbo, he downplays himself by wearing shabby clothes and acting like he doesn't know a whole lot. You don't care what's on your character sheet or what your backstory is or anything. You give no credence to the shrine that a player is able to cave out for themselves for the world. You go, and I don't give a shit about that. And you come in and you just start asking a whole lot of questions. It's not questions about like, where the bad guys are or how many you need to fight. It's like, do they have potatoes? And then suddenly I'm like, I don't know if they've got potatoes.
I'm like, ooh, interesting.
Go ahead.
No, it's like,
potatoes.
Let me check your potato masher.
Yeah.
I thought you didn't have potatoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Role playing the game. When you were playing a role playing game, questions are the game.
Yeah. Players don't ask enough questions.
They don't. Well, and there's a reason why. So I've thought about this a lot, and it's like, and I've read a lot of shit about it, but it's like, when you hear about realism in a game, you think that means we're trying to imitate the real world as much as possible. What realism really means, all it means, is that logical consequences follow actions. And what logic is depends on like the setting and the type of game you're playing and the people at the table, whatever. But like, when you're playing in a game and it's not clear, like there's bad logic following actions, the characters have no idea what to expect. Mm-hmm. So they don't know what to ask because it's like, well, clearly logic doesn't apply here, either because it hadn't been applied yet or it's been applied wrong.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where, you are the senses. When you're a game master, if you are not describing it, then they don't know it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it can be hard to ask questions because it's like, what is even in this fucking room? If the GM isn't giving good enough descriptions, like, what do I ask questions about?
Yeah.
Like, do I just keep asking what's in the room until I get what I need? And then like, fuck. There was another thing I was gonna say after that, but whatever. But you know what I mean. I think it's important for a GM. Probably the most important thing to do for a GM is to set things up for asking questions and give people as much information as you humanly can.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to ask questions if you don't know what to ask? How are you going to make meaningful actions if you don't know things?
I think players should, with every character they go in, pretend that they're playing like an old BioWare game and just the stupidest questions all the time.
Like the fucking the text prompt games where you have to say like, walk east.
The DM is like, there's some dwarves in here. And you walk up to the tavern and you're like, tell me about the dwarves. That's a really stupid question, but it gives a whole lot of room for the GM to be like, oh, finally, someone freaking has to. Let me just tell you about him then. No one's ever asked.
And that also helps you.
It does, a ton.
Yeah, because if you're running by the seat of your pants, which I do a lot, if somebody asks a question, all of a sudden I'm like, they're interested in this. I don't have anything written for it, but if they're interested in this, that gives me something to go off of. I can flesh that out, and that's another thing I can throw in.
Yeah.
Now them asking a question made me think of something completely different to put in the game.
Yeah.
Not only are they telegraphing like the things that they want, because those are the questions that they're asking you, but they're giving you information on a silver they're giving you your game on a silver fucking
100%,
platter.
yeah.
You know? It's crazy how symbiotic it is, but I think a lot of times people think it starts with the players, but it doesn't, because it starts with the GM.
Mm-hmm.
You need at least a good seed,
Yeah.
and you can go from there, because how would a player know to ask any questions if they don't understand how the logic of the world works? If they don't even understand what's around them? If they don't understand, like we were talking about earlier, who they are and what they want to do? Like how do they start? Like the GM is the one who's initiating it, and then it's just a back and forth from there.
Yeah.
You know, back and forth forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah. I think the other frustrations I've had as doing as DM is because I would like myself as a player. Like
You wouldn't like yourself as a
I
player?
would like myself as a player. If I had a whole thing of me, I would like it.
So if you were just playing just solo RPGs just by yourself, you'd be fucking like hell yeah.
all the stuff I always think about, I'm like, that would be interesting for me. But then I feel like sometimes I try to do that, and there's no mechanics to it, so that nothing works.
I think it's because you don't set your promises right in storytelling. You're like, I've got a certain story I want to tell, and then you just start telling it. And you don't set any sort of boundaries. You don't set your promises to let players know exactly what they should be doing.
What do you mean promise? Like, what do you mean by that?
Promises. So, I mean, that's the same thing as if you walk into a tavern and there are bad guys in the corner, that's a promise immediately that something bad should happen in that locale. If something bad doesn't happen in that locale, or players aren't confronted with an option for them to de-escalate that, then overall what you've done with your description is you've given a description but then robbed players of any interaction with it.
Huh.
Making promises in a story, whatever you're first doing in your first few sessions, is setting down promises of what the tone of the story is going to be like, the sort of difficulty challenges and arcs, what sort of main questions that you're going to be bringing up. And typically with each of these promises, it's one of the best things in terms of story design is the rule of first in, last out. So whatever your first promise or the first big question that you give to the players, or for a setting or a reader, for instance, in a story, that's typically the last thing that should ever be answered. Because
you got to keep them on that promise the whole time.
And so, but the idea is then you make a second promise, third promise, and then suddenly you're making stuff in the middle. When you establish something, it's being solved a scene later.
That is
wow. And then as you're playing, boom, you're digging out older stuff that you didn't think had any relevancy into a campaign, and then suddenly it's had a full thread the entire way through.
That is a fascinating way of looking at it. That's cool. That changes a lot. Because it is true, especially when coupled with the fact that the players only know what you tell them.
Yeah.
It's like everything that comes out of your fucking mouth is a promise. It's a promise that I'm giving you something to latch onto. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you something to do. I'm giving you something to engage with.
Yeah.
Because if you're just saying something and it's not engageable, then what have you done? You know, that there's no logic there. There's no, that thing is there, that means this will happen, that means I can go out and reach it. No.
I mean, technically, there's been a lot of risks I've taken with Star Trek for how the game should run. Because even with this last adventure, it has a warning that says, this is a horror adventure. This is not like other Star Trek.
So fucking tight.
When you are playing
it is.
Star Trek, the promises are that it's not going to be focused on combat. It's going to be questioning really big moral or sci-fi sort of related questions and trying to find intricate solutions.
What if a planet is a dude?
Stuff like that. And so when suddenly you thrust players into a moment in their game where it's the complete opposite, that breaks all of your promises.
Right.
Now, the thing is, this can be done really well. If suddenly you have too much repetition and it's growing too comfortable for everything in every session is meeting the promises of what players are expecting. When you suddenly throw them a session that completely twists their genre, twists what their expectations of for that session are going to be, by doing that then creates some longevity. Because as a player, when I'm playing a character, I'm most excited when I'm first playing them. When I'm first playing them, it's super exciting, but I also don't know them well enough. So there's a weird distance where you're like, man, I haven't realized the image that I've created for this character. And then usually after a few sessions, you can quite easily discover that, and then you figure out the chemistry around the table. Well, if a campaign just continues on with that sort of trajectory with no other change in pace or in its genre twist, I find that it can kind of grow to be what D&D becomes. Okay, we're a party of adventurers, and then we're in another combat that we'll just probably get through because we know how our abilities work, and then we'll get to the bad guy.
Well, to stop at combat really quick, I think I kind of understand now the reason why we kind of blow through combat and stuff the way that we tend to. The way you tend to, not all the time, but I think we both tend to in our games kind of blow through that stuff.
Yeah.
A big reason why is because if you have a combat, especially towards the beginning, that is a slog, you are promising, hey, we're going to be doing this every session.
Yeah.
And you're going to fucking hate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you have combats that are really dynamic or truncated or kind of freewheeling, then it's saying, hey, I'm promising you that combat's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So when you break that expectation, it's like, yo, this is serious. We're breaking out the grid. That means we're probably going to fucking die if we don't do it right.
Well, so for instance, there can be bad with sticking with your promises. We were in a particular game run by someone where we made some characters, if you remember it, where we showed up and basically there was a whole city and it's all set up, and the idea was that we had to go through these leveled tiers to fight all these monsters.
Yeah,
and that was going to be our thing.
I think we talked about that on this podcast before. Man, that game was shitty.
Yeah, but the thing is, the first session was really strong, and it's because of the sorts of promises it made. Immediately, it set out you are going to be playing adventurers that are in this city. You have access to anything you want. You will be going down into a dungeon that gets progressively worse as you play through it.
I think I'm thinking of something else, but continue.
It's a different game. But immediately after that session, when we brought our characters to the table, we thought through the metrics of how this whole dungeon worked, and we turned like level 1 against level 2 by using necromancy and creating a whole bunch of
it was all the skeletons, and we played at the library, and
it
is the same game.
The thing is, the problem here is the dungeon master stuck with their promises. They came to a table with promises, and then players came to their table with, okay, we like your promises, but here are expectations.
Right.
Which is the amount of power they're putting out, the types of things they're wanting to do with their characters, the non-level focused progression that they were interested in. Because immediately we started we're going to create our own place, and then we can create our own minions and send them in. We were basically treating we love the setting and promises you've made, and immediately as players, we want to play a Dungeon Keeper game against it.
Yeah.
And instead, session 2, there was an adamant focus on the original promises.
Right.
And it didn't match up with the rest of the game. Because we just kept killing stuff over and over, and the promise became, you're going to have rule-focused combat that will not change and will not fluctuate to meet the demand of what you're able to do.
Right. And I got to say, it's actually kind of scary. The heavier the system you play is, the scarier the promise is, because all of a sudden, it's not just a promise you're making, it's a promise that's backed up with a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's a promise that says, okay, now here's all the pages of math and stuff that all of us have done and work we did in order to keep that promise.
Yeah.
So on one hand, if you break that promise, obviously it's a lot worse because then what do all these numbers mean? Fucking nothing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you stay too strict to that promise because you're scared of the amount of work that you did and stuff like that, then people are going to be like, oh, well, that's it? This is all we're going to do is just play the spreadsheet?
Dungeons
boring.
and Dragons inherently has promises built into it, which is why I think it's difficult to run other games in. Because level progression, if you run a D&D game where you don't focus on giving the characters regular level progression, no one's going to have a fun time.
Right.
Because the game is built with the promise that you will level and your character will progress in these measured ways.
It's built with the promise that that monsters you fight are probably going to have counterspell.
Yes.
It's like it's built with this. That feeds right into using the right system for the right game, because you're totally right. I mean, games do have promises.
I had the concern that when we started running Star Trek, and I realized, well, there's no obvious linear progression, and the progression when it happens isn't even much. That'd be a problem. It might make the game feel stale.
Perfect.
It seems like it's been the opposite so far.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been pretty good. I
Because
like the reward system. The reward system was a big payoff, but I didn't feel like I was hungry for it. Like, I didn't feel like I was waiting for it. I was like, oh, cool, that's nice.
Yeah.
I feel good about that, but now I'm going to keep playing the
What
game.
people tend to be hungry for is the actual whatever the story is at hand, and how to solve it, which is what the game focus should be.
Just as I think the gameplay in a role-playing game really is asking questions, the game itself is a problem. The game itself, the hook, that initial hook that the referee's giving you, it is that initial, hey, here's who you are, here's what you have, here's the problem you need to solve, go. And they start asking questions about the stuff they have and who they are and about the problem, and now you've just got a game. Boom. Yeah. Bing, bang, boom, you have a game, and you're adapting. The problem is, of course, going to adapt to the things the players are doing, back and forth, forever. Fuck, I am, like, losing my train of thought so often. Can you run with that? Run with it.
Yeah, I'm running. So I'm running over to Matt. He's been listening the whole time. And
He
ready
has.
to
And
hear.
you've been talking mad shit about him
I
this
have.
whole time.
So
the
it's time to
subtext
hear
has
some-
been you hate his jamming style.
No,
So what do you think about
I
that?
have not talked about his jamming
No,
style.
you
Do you
didn't-
hate Casey now?
you
Tell me
didn't finish
about
your
How
that.
can
thought,
I
though.
hate his jamming style when I'm trying to emulate it myself?
You didn't finish your thing. What do I not promise?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Where all this came
This
from.
is
I
all
was,
preamble
I
to
was on
talking
the-
shit
I'm
about
very-
Matt.
you don't set any promises about what the fucking game is about.
I think I'm too weak to
you're
keep
like,
this
okay,
promise.
just make characters, and we make
weak?
characters.
What do you mean you're too weak to keep the promise?
Because
What does that
Casey
mean?
always bullies his characters in the game.
Well,
No, I don't.
forget about
I
Casey
don't.
for 1 second. Like if you were okay, let's say you were GMing for yourself and you still had a problem. What would the problem be? If you were
Myself is the
you were
problem?
GMing for, maybe let's say this. You're GMing like a blank for people who are blank slates. They are gonna do whatever they need to do for you to make your game run. But what is a problem you would still have? Is there like an inherent problem, or is it like group based? You see what
I
I'm
think
saying?
it's because my philosophy of high play, I like characters to be more inquisitive in the world. So when I DM, I usually get, I'm like, oh, this is the expectations I would like, and then how can I make that more interesting?
Yeah.
And then it comes up to players, and they don't have any of the same thoughts I do.
But see, if you curated
And I'm
it-
like, I just want to do this, and I know I don't want to train wreck them.
by promises, what I mean is
Well-
if you curated a game and you said, I want everyone to play specifically scholars of a sort of type
That's what I was
that
gonna
are
say, is just-
interested in this sort of game.
Do it, railroad them. It's not railroading.
I guess so.
It's not so railroading is not what I described, and then completely lost my fucking train of thought on. Railroading. People think railroading is what I described, which is here's who you're playing, here's what you're doing, here's the solution.
No, I'm saying for me to railroad.
But what I'm saying is, like, if you find yourself being disappointed and saying, "Oh man, they're not doing the things that I want to do, that they're not feeding into the story I want to run," why don't you just tell them the story that you want to run? Like, tell them, like, "Hey, here's what I want this game to be about. Prepare accordingly." It's your game.
I think every first or second session should be railroaded.
It's railroading.
Controversial take.
What railroading really is when it's not creating a linear game. Railroading is when a player says, "Hey, I have a question," and you go, "That I'm not even going to answer that question. It's dumb." Or the player's like, "I'm going to do something," and they're like, "We're not even going to do that." Like, it's shutting down the input.
Oh
you
man,
know?
you're bringing back some bad memories. Oh.
Yeah,
That's
more
what I'm
GM nightmares.
That's what I'm saying. For me to do that, for me to have this idea, but I just see fundamentally, obviously, I have to get over it. But there's this very specific game, not a perfect game, but like the idea of exploring the world that I want the players to do. I just don't see.
Well, why don't you? Because I don't know what that is. Why don't you? Before you run the game, tell the players, "Hey, this is the type of characters I want you to be for this game." It's your game.
Yeah.
You have the big idea. You can tell. You are perfectly within your rights to tell in a broad sense who the players are going to play and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But when you start that exchange, where it's like, what you're trying to do is create a context, and that context, you as the GM, needs to be whatever you need it to be.
Yeah.
And then it's up to everyone else whether or not they want to play the game. But like
Right.
at the same time, it's like, if you have like you should be saying what you're thinking. It's the same thing when we were talking about, like, when you have interpersonal issues come out in game. It's like instead just literally tell the player to their face what you think about them or what's going on. Same thing here. When you're a GM, it's like, hey, this is the type of game we're gonna play. You know, this is the type of things I want to see happen. This is the type of things I want to do, and then we'll this is what I want to do with this game.
Yeah.
You know, you're perfectly within your right to do that. I don't think you need to be worried about railroading, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely
that's
not.
different.
I mean,
railroading is a misnomer.
The introduction of group patrons into D&D was probably one of the best things in terms of some actual structured DM advice. From 5th,
100%.
because just doing that, applying that to every game that you run would make your game much smoother. Having everyone come together and talk about what microcosm they're wanting to play. Not just playing there's a lot of fun always in just we're just a smackling of random adventurers who happen to come together and we're solving the issue.
Sure, yeah.
That's great. It's charismatic. It's wonderful. But there's deeper storytelling, and you can tell and focus on much different types of stories by actually focusing on, well, maybe we're all part of one individual group. Maybe we have a different focus than other people.
You hear a lot about shifting the spotlight in games, but I don't even think there should be a spotlight. Mm-hmm. Like when you're playing a game, you are playing a group solving a problem.
Yeah.
You are not playing one guy who's trying to do one thing. Even in games like Burning Wheel, where everyone has their own motives and stuff like that, at the end of the day, from a meta perspective, everyone has to recognize, like, the GM's one guy.
Yeah.
We all need to share, the space. We all need to solve this one problem that we have in common. So it's like you're never playing in... No one is ever playing in a vacuum. And a lot of times, especially when you're on a roll, that can be really hard to, like, kind of take yourself out of if you get so invested in your story or so invested in your character.
Yeah.
But it's like... Yeah. No, it's... Oh, my God. This is the third time I've lost my fucking train of thought. What the hell is wrong with me?
You need a conductor, man.
I need a conductor.
A conductor?
Yeah, for his train of thought.
Oh. That wasn't laughing.
I'm glad that you had to, mention that.
I don't know. I don't know what's up with my fucking brain. It starts going and like it just fizzles out. I don't know. I'm so fucking tired. But look, I want to like the question that I think we're asking then is if if we were gonna run a game, like one of the other games you were gonna run or something like that, and you wanted us to play a certain way, how would you want us to play?
Tell me how to play the game. They don't DM it.
I'm sorry. What?
We're talking a system exclusive.
No, I know. I'm joking. Yeah. I just never know the system enough.
Well, and that's totally
knowing
valid.
the system
that's
is
totally
not
valid.
important. Just acting like you know the system is more important than knowing it. I'll tell you that.
There's a whole school of role playing, free Kriegspiel I talked about before, which is like there is no numbers. It's all diegetic.
No.
It all follows the principles that I'm describing. You can have a full role playing game without rules because it's a process. It's a group procedure at the table.
Yeah.
You know that the only reason why rules are there is because every once in a while there are things that people are going to argue about. And then you want to have like an underlying structure to solve it. But I mean, I guess what I'm asking is think back to one of your games where maybe people like didn't do what you thought they were what you wanted them to do basically. And how would you tell them what if you had to do it again? What would you tell them to do? You know what I'm saying?
I guess it's like before with the whole having the group patron is that I was just never liking. When I always liked it if they were all together, and I later I would try to have that.
Oh, that could have been very bad.
He just hit the coffee cup.
Later, I tried to force that much, but I don't know. It's been a while. I haven't thought about much DMing it much at all lately.
Are you interested in DMing it?
I don't know if I have anything just interesting things I want to do,
and which is fine. You do very interesting things as a player. That's more than enough.
I can't believe that you don't have interesting questions that you want to explore. Because ultimately, when it comes down for me choosing like what I want to DM, it's usually me going, I've got an interesting question. And instead of saying, instead of trying to find a personal answer for it, I go, why not have an experiment with 5 people enter it and don't know about the question?
Yeah. Yeah, you obfuscate the question.
Obfuscate the question.
That's definitely what I fucking feel like in the Star Trek scenario running right now. Is like I mentioned as much last night. It's like I have so much info.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what question to ask about the info.
Yeah,
like I don't
interesting.
know what to. I feel like I have all the pieces. I just don't know how they fit together.
That's
you know?
most of Case's games. It's always just like, it's pretty obvious. It's really obvious. Just ask the right
Yeah,
questions.
it always seems a lot more obvious.
It's always
from my side.
just ask
Which
the
is
right questions.
Which is good. It should be obvious to you because you're the one fucking running it.
Yeah.
But that's intrigue. That is intrigue by definition.
Yeah.
Is knowing the right questions. We're not knowing what to ask.
I mean, I just explained pitch the other day to Matt in its full functionality,
Fuck.
and
We were there for the development.
He was
of
like,
that,
"Why
weren't
didn't
we?
you just
Yeah, we were
explain
playing
any of
Blue
this?"
Mountain
And I'm like,
stuff, and
he's like, "Why didn't you explain any of this? Of how this all works?" I'm like, "Because then it wouldn't be pitch. It wouldn't work."
are you
it's
talking about stuff
still-
you never explained to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about
he
the inner
could've still
mechanics.
He could have still explained it in a different way. You didn't have to say it all outright.
Yeah.
He didn't. You didn't have to.
I do think you should say it all. I think you should err on the side of giving players more information than not. To the point where Chris McDowell, who a lot of the stuff I'm talking about I've stolen from.
Yeah.
His philosophy with traps, players always know that the traps are there. They know how they work, exactly what they do, and where they are. The question then becomes, well, how do you get around it?
Mm-hmm.
Now that you know what's there, how do you disarm it? That's the more interesting part of it. It's like I fully believe, especially with like Burning, I take what I learned in Burning Wheel everywhere, which is just give it all. Give it all to the players. Keep some secrets and stuff. But the more information players have, the more invested they'll be and the more they'll be able to do. You know? Like, I feel like if I knew how pitch worked, I'd probably get it a lot more.
Yeah, but your experience also would have been widely changed.
Right. It would be.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. With pitch, it was, I just called you all over to my house on a random day, I think. It wasn't even our normal gaming
It was about after around the time we were playing Blue Mountain. That was pretty early. Yeah.
Because I started to get expired by...
Huh?
By the non-fantasy sort of games that we were doing. And I was like, okay, I had an idea. And I literally just called you all over. We used Fate loosely because
very loosely.
you like explained how it worked 10 minutes before I started running it. And then just put a flashlight in the middle of the table and then started having you role play as beings in darkness.
That was fucking tight. But if you recall, that after that first very good, very intense stretch, it kind of fell apart.
Well, I think that we had there was a solid session 2 and then partially 3 afterwards.
Kind of. But it was, I wasn't getting the same gravity as the first, like the induction. The induction was cool. I guess what I'm saying is, I think that if I were going to run something like pitch, I wouldn't personally, one, because it's not my sort of thing. You're better at things like that. But also, I don't think that's the sort of question that a tabletop role-playing game is able to ask. Because whatever you are doing still has to be tied into the game part.
Yeah.
Like what you were doing with pitch as like a performative, like art or improvisational piece or just pure role-play piece would have been cool as hell. But because it's also now a role-playing game, which has all of the baggage that we've been talking about this whole time, it's like, I would argue, you have to give the players everything about how this thing works. And it's like, well, you can't. Then it's like, then maybe this isn't the right medium for the concept. You know?
It was the right medium. I just didn't have the right mechanics. I didn't have a mechanic for having 5 people play one organism.
I don't know if many... Yeah, you know what? I know a game that does. It's called Everyone is John.
Yeah?
Yeah. Have you ever played Everyone is John?
No, I haven't, because
Oh,
it came
fuck.
out... You told me about it, long after I ran Pitch. But immediately
yeah.
that's what I thought, because that's sort of how Pitch was supposed to go.
But then you play Everyone is John, and it does not... The way a bunch of players controlling one dude goes, it would not be in service to how pitch works.
Yeah, it's a lot more...
I guess what I'm saying is, like, there are things that I would like to do with role-playing games that I used to think I could do or I used to would have tried. But based on the knowledge and experience that I have now, that's for something different. Mm-hmm. There are game ideas and stuff that I would only run in something like Kingdom.
Yeah.
Which is not a role-playing game in the same way that, like, D&D is or Star Trek is or stuff like that. It's really kind of an acting experiment.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, there is a lot of things that it's like, Like I don't know. I don't know if man, fucking just
You gone again?
You gone again.
Just
Yep.
gone again, dude.
Number 4.
Dementia's here's
That
comes
caught
the,
me off guard.
It's getting it now.
the dementia's coming for me, man. Yeah, it's coming, man. Early onset. Let's go. Yeah.
Just blew up everyone. I don't know what we're doing here.
Pitch. Fucking. Maybe I need to get up and walk around. Maybe I need to get a beer.
Yeah, maybe
that would
you
help.
do.
There's still 2 left. None
I
of us
know.
touched it.
Good. I was gonna be pissed if you
All right,
did.
With my hands.
You stand up and you're like clinking around. Goes clink, clink.
Well, you want to take a break?
Yeah, we can take.
All
a
right, it sucks. Too bad.
Yeah.
Well, fuck you.
We're not-
We're
we're not
at. Oh, look at the time.
can't push
That's
the
that's
button.
perfect. You can't.